30 days. That's how long I was out there alone, hungry, soaked through, edging toward the thin line where a person starts talking to silence like it's a friend. At dawn the North Cascades look razor-cut and innocent, all pink light on jagged spines and slow rivers breathing fog. If you've ever wondered where quiet lives, it's here between your heartbeat and a wind no one owns. That morning, under those sawtoothed ridgelines, my life was still tidy, a pack, a plan, a trail. A helicopter hummed miles away, just a documentary speck carving the sky, and I wasn't yet a dot anyone would be searching for. People later say 30 days like it's a headline. Before it's a number, it's a choice. Take one step deeper into a forest that smells like resin and wet earth, and believe the woods are a backdrop, not a maze. This isn't a movie. No second takes. No body double. Just my hands checking buckles, my breath syncing with the trees, and a world offering pure, uncomplicated light through the canopy. "Good morning," the mountains said without words. "Good morning," I answered, not knowing that by tomorrow the same greeting would make my hands shake. Survival, I'd learn, doesn't begin when you admit you're lost. It starts much earlier when you fall in love with quiet and stop measuring it by your footprints. My name is Robert Schock. When I run, the world shrinks to breath and cadence. When I stop, music gives it back to me. I'm not a legend of the Alpine. I don't carry a house on my back or navigate by starlight. I'm a runner who trusts his engine, a musician who needs silence more than small talk. That summer the North Cascades kept tugging at my eyes. In one photo I'm grinning with a pack slung over his shoulder, 2-to-1, in another I'm moving along a trail in shallow depth of field, 2-to-2, everything but me and the path deliciously blurred. Mountains don't do bokeh, though. Up close, every edge is sharp. I wasn't out to impress anyone. I wanted to prove to myself I could sit with my own thoughts longer than a song lasts. My pack was light, a knife, a lighter, a little food, a spare shirt. A couple days, I told myself and anyone who asked. There's a dangerous confidence in a strong body. It's a song you play too loud, and you miss the soft warnings. I like to think I'm careful. Truth is, I sometimes trust rhythm too much. And rhythm, when it meets a mountain, changes time signatures. This story is about a man who went looking for calm and found the border between silence and the whisper that tastes like fear. The North Cascades National Park sign, 3-to-1, looks like a friendly invitation postcard, clean, sky-rinsed blue. The air cuts cold and then warms inside your lungs, and somewhere below a glacial river mutters over slate. I shut my eyes, 3-to-2, and trace a simple line in my head, trailhead to ridge. Open them and the world is all detail, pine needles that stick to your soles, dust that remembers every step, and the steady throat sound of water. Follow water, I tell myself. Rivers feed you and fool you, shaping valleys that all look the same. A rush of ice-cold current, 3-to-3, steals my breath when I crouch to drink, not from fear but from purity that reminds you how soft the human body is. The paper map in my pocket is a theory. Reality is boot prints fading under duff, branches that bend like they're guarding a secret. If I make a mistake today, I'll fix it tomorrow, I think, as if the forest were a notebook with an eraser and not a ledger that records everything. Looking back, I blush at how sure I was. But without that bravado, there wouldn't be the moment later when a shaking hand lifts a jacket to the sky and begs the world to look down. Every story that begins on frame 3-to-1 ends somewhere else. Mine chose the longest possible loop back to the car. Before I set off, I snugged down the straps, 4-to-1, and listened for the small, satisfying clicks. That sound tricks you into believing you've locked the day into place. In my cap pocket, a plan you can write on a receipt. Start, listen to your body, turn back. Someone snapped a photo, 4-to-2, a big, uncomplicated smile. People will call solo a mistake. Maybe it is. But those first hours are the cleanest thoughts I've ever had. Just footsteps. Just trees. Just me slipping the net of normal life. Being alone means every decision is yours, the bad ones and the ones that save you. I didn't know it yet, but going solo would become both my heaviest burden and my best chance. When everything fell apart, there was no one to blame, no energy wasted on excuses. Only a job, keep myself alive for one more hour, then another. And yes, there was pride. Not the internet kind, the private belief that I wasn't reckless, just differently prepared. Mountains always get the last word. They speak in weather and terrain, and the grammar isn't yours. I passed a family on a switchback, 5-1. The kid fenced with a stick, the mom raised her brows when I skimmed by, the dad returned my hello with a nod, a map rustling in his pocket. "Beautiful day," I said. "Beautiful day," they answered. That was it. I wanted to linger, borrow their easy mood, but rhythm tugged me on. From behind, 5-2, I must have looked like a man who knew where he was going. The trail thinned and slipped into a forest that drinks sound. 2 turns later, they were gone like a scene change. I didn't know they'd be the last to see me for a very long time. To them I'd stay a smiling passerby, to myself I'd soon become a voice interrogating my own footprints. The frame in my head is always 5-2, my back receding, the camera fixed. Every disappearance has that moment where the audience wants to shout, "Stop." Real life doesn't shout. The world lets you go because who imagines a labyrinth waiting 2 trees ahead? Sunflex, 6-1, jittered on the ground like the forest was practicing choreography. My pace was loose and confident, sweat a friendly confirmation that the engine was awake. Boots, 6-2, thudded a rhythm I know by heart, tup, 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 each needle underfoot a soft drum. The map's edges pressed my pocket, but I didn't pull it. Days this clean discouraged out. Mountains prefer subtleties, a degree of slope that nudges you, a deer path that impersonates a shortcut, a veil of light fog that falls behind you like a curtain. In cities, turns are announced by signs. Here, signs are a cooler patch of air, a broken limb, the smell of water to your left. If I'd listened harder, I might have heard the rhythm shift, steps growing just a shade cautious. Caution is a quiet word, easy to outvote with confidence. Later, when I was a long way from any line on a map, I remembered this same scatter of light and how innocent it looked. That's the trap. When nothing looks dangerous, you stop looking for danger. Out here, danger doesn't hunt you. It waits to be overlooked. A junction that might not be a junction, 7-1, a faint trace left, a fuller track right that dies into leaf litter. A trail marker half erased by weather like a ghost of certainty. I pulled the compass and map, 7-2, and felt how useless paper is if you don't ask it the right questions. Without GPS you're back to sense, and sense loves to lie when it's tired. Just a little farther, I told myself, nicking a discreet blaze into bark as I passed. 20 minutes later the tread had softened into a game trail, 7-3, and then into nothing. I reversed course, tried to find my own prints. Moss forgives everything, it erases without judgment. The thought I didn't want arrived anyway, you might be off. I pushed it down, embarrassed to admit it even to myself. I took a new bearing, slower this time, ears tuned for water. Somewhere ahead, a steady rush. Rivers are truth and trickster, but there's something. I made a decision, if I'm going deeper, I'm going marked. Stones stacked, a bent twig, a memory hook. The forest is more patient than I'll ever be. Patience wins here. If I could launch a drone from my skull you'd see it, 8-1, my tracks looping in tidy, wrong circles across moss. The sun climbed, erased my sense of direction, and at noon every compass point looked identical. I stopped and stared into the canopy, 8-2. Light came down in white ladders, beautiful and useless. I did the sensible things, left tiny markers, memorized a scarred rock and a pale lichen blotch, followed the sound of water without letting it suck me into steep banks. Hours later I recognized a place I didn't want to recognize. That's when panic tried to get clever, not loud, quick math in my head, how much food, how many daylight hours, how cold the night. Circles don't break themselves. They need a line. I chose a small rebellion, go against instinct. If logical has failed you all day, try its mirror. I sipped from the river, slow and careful, then spoke out loud, not for rescue, but to keep my thoughts from turning into labyrinths. Straight a bit. Then left. Then any sign of path. Saying it gave me just enough backbone to move. Night doesn't just fall out here, it climbs up around you. First a chill draft, then a long shadow, then a blanket with no edges. I curled under a tree, 9-1, jacket zipped to my chin, trying to find a position where the roots didn't jab my ribs. The ground was wet enough to soak into my bones. The air smelled like metal and moss, and every sound was too big. A twig snapping felt like a branch breaking, a rustle like footsteps. In the distance, moonlight carved silver stripes across the clearing, and animal silhouettes flickered at the edge of my vision, 9-2. I tried counting breaths 10 in, 10 out to trick my body into sleeping. Sleep came in thin slices, 10 minutes here, 5 there, always snapped by some noise my brain insisted might be important. I learned a rule that night: don't try to beat the dark by staying awake. Let it pass over you like weather. I whispered to myself, tomorrow you find the trail. Tomorrow you do better. It wasn't a promise, more like a barter with time: give me morning, and I'll keep moving. I squeezed tighter into myself, trying to heat my own bones with willpower. I didn't know yet there'd be many more nights like this. But the first one is always the loudest and the most honest. It says, this isn't a hike anymore. This is negotiation. Morning came gray and heavy. I opened the pack, 10-1, and stared at numbers that didn't add up, almost nothing left. The save this for tomorrow snack looked laughable now. On the edge of the path, if it even was a path, I saw berries, 10-2. Some I recognized, some were suspicious twins of the kind that kill you. I did what caution I had left told me: eat 2, wait an hour, see what happens. Every bite was a conversation with fear. Water was easier, streams were everywhere, clear and sharp, but you had to drink slowly. Too much, too fast, and your stomach rebelled. My fingers were numb, nails caked in dirt, palms bright red from the cold water. That was the first day I started thinking about bugs. In a warm kitchen the thought is disgusting, here it's just math. Protein is protein. The first one I ate, I did it quick, without ceremony, like sneaking past my own disgust. It wasn't heroic, it wasn't cinematic. It was just necessary. The real loss wasn't the food, it was the illusion that this would be over quickly. Once that slips away, you're left with the truth: discipline. And one more thing: stubbornness. Out here, stubbornness isn't a flaw. It's breakfast. The days turned mechanical. Wake before dawn because cold air keeps you sharp. Flex fingers until blood returns. Kneel by the stream, cup the water, 11-1, sip slow. Pick berries, 11-2, cautious as a chemist. Move while light is wide. Stop before dark starts negotiating. I built a mental map only I would ever use: the stump with white lichen, the fallen log that marks the river bend, the rock that smells faintly of rot. Sometimes I'd find a mushroom and run my ritual: color, smell, tiny taste, wait an hour. Hunger is a constant, but the body learns to spend energy like it's money. My movements became smaller, efficient. Fingers cracked, nails black, lips crusted with salt. One afternoon I finally chewed a bug, 11-3. Not to conquer fear, just to stay vertical. I talked out loud while I did it, like I was reporting for a logbook: water north 20 steps. Shelter behind the boulder. Berries near the fallen cedar. I wasn't sending messages to anyone else. I was sending them forward to the version of me who would be more tired later. Out here you don't carry a map. You become one. First you feel it, the air shifts tone, like someone beating a drum under the leaves. Then you hear it, that deep, mechanical thump that rearranges the sky. Helicopter. My heart yanked upward like someone had cut the rope holding it down. I ran for the clearing, 12-1, barely big enough to deserve the word branches whipping my face. I swung my jacket over my head, screamed until my throat burned raw. The whole world narrowed to a single question: will they see me? The machine slid over me, 12-2, loud and powerful, then kept going. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was crushing. I sat down hard. It wasn't just hope falling away, it was the structure I'd been building for days. They're looking, they'll find me, all I have to do is wave. They didn't. Not this time. I tried not to hate the sound, because maybe it would come back. Instead, I hated the weakness that thought it was over. I stood up. It wasn't over. If I can lift an arm, I can take another step. If I can step, I can find water. If I can find water, I can live another day. That night I made a new deal with myself: don't count on miracles. Count on habits. And if miracles come, let them find you working. When days pile up like damp rags on a line, the weight isn't just in your legs anymore, it's in your head. I sat on a stump, 13-1, stared at the place where the trail should be, and saw only forest offering no explanation. My eyes filled, not from sadness but because the body was tired of forcing itself forward. I started talking. First a whisper to the bark: "Come on, Rob. Get up." Then louder, like an argument: "Do you even get it?" And soon I was holding full conversations with people who weren't there, 13-2, with my mom, with a friend who never shuts up, with a girl who once told me I was stubborn as a nail in an oak. Sometimes I laughed at my own lines, then felt stupid for laughing. Loneliness has stages: first it scares you, then it makes itself at home, then it suggests you stop asking questions. That day I fought all three stages. At one point I tried to pray, but the words scattered. All that stayed was breathing 4 counts in, 6 counts out. Numbers are neutral. They don't promise or disappoint. I started thinking about small comforts as a tactic: the smell of coffee in a kitchen, sunlight hitting a table, the low hum of the fridge at night. Those thoughts weren't nostalgia, they were lifelines. When the tears were gone, a dry place opened in my chest, and I wrote a rule on it: don't trust panic. Trust routine. I wiped my face, stood up, and decided tonight I'd find a better shelter, even if it was just one rock better than last night's. The decision was small, which is why it mattered: just one more step. Not 1,000, not 101. I clenched my fist, 14-1, and saw the dirt packed under my nails like growth rings on a tree, each day adding a layer. My hand shook, but as long as it could close, it could still carry me. I stood, straightened my back, planted my feet, 14-2, like someone was taking my picture and I had to prove I was still three-dimensional. I built a microplan: water every morning and afternoon, never too fast, berries only ones I know, and never too many, follow creeks but stay high enough to save energy, shelter before dark, then anything else. I ticked boxes in my head as if I were back in school. A choice is like a muscle: use it and it grows, ignore it and it withers. I started looking for small wins. Find a dry strip of bark fuel for fire, warmer night. Spot a repeat bird track, maybe a clearing ahead. Notice the wind shift north to west, good for orientation. These aren't dramatic, but they're operational. I spoke to myself like a coach: short, sharp orders. Head up. Breathe steady. Save your strength. And a new rule: forgive every mistake the moment you notice it, because guilt burns calories you can't spare. There was only the next step, and how to take it with the least wasted oxygen. If survival has a style, mine was minimalism: strip away everything but what moves you forward. Somewhere far from my quiet footsteps, noise was being made on my behalf. In a tented base camp, 15-1, maps were pinned, pushpins stabbed at last known points, bright marker lines drawn in hopeful sweeps. Drones buzzed canyons, 15-3, dogs sniffed narrow trails, volunteers in high-vis vests, 15-2, fanned out in careful patterns like a chess opening: systematic, patient, fueled by a hope that runs on schedules and daylight. Their hope was different from mine. They believed odds increased with each pair of eyes scanning the brush. I believed odds stacked: one more day I could stay upright. I didn't know about the flyers tacked to bulletin boards, the social posts leaping time zones, the neighbors showing up with coffee. But later, I'd understand: a net of hands was holding me up even when I thought I was standing alone. Searches have protocols, grid sweeps, resweeps, recalculated probabilities, but they also have moments of intuition when someone says, let's try that ridge too. It still humbles me that strangers spent free time, strength, even safety, to push my chances upward. That knowledge warms better than any blanket. But for now, I was still counting sips. They were counting squares on the map. Until our arithmetic met, rhythm was all we had in common. My mom stood in front of cameras, my photo clutched like she could warm it with her palms. Microphones hissed, flashbulbs popped, 16-2, but her voice was steady, my son is alive. I will not give up. That sentence was the engine of the entire operation. Volunteers signed up, schedules filled, drones were booked, even satellite images were reviewed. She was the motor, not the general. Her hope turned strangers into a workforce. I didn't hear it then, but later I watched the footage, her spine straight, her tears rationed so they didn't drown her words, her gratitude to everyone who searched. Children learn their mother's voice before birth. Maybe that's why, out there, I felt her determination like body heat, even if the air was freezing. Hope in a family isn't a feeling, it's a job. You wake up and believe, you go to bed and believe. That day her belief crossed mountains and canyons, and I think it bent someone's decision just enough to keep looking. If I had a compass then, it would have pointed not north but home. By day 20 the stick I carried wasn't a hiking aid anymore, it was a crutch, 17-1. Without it I wouldn't stand. My knees creaked like old doors, eyes hollow with fatigue. My face had narrowed, lips cracked into maps of tiny rivers, but my eyes refused to go dull, 17-2. Pain had become something I scheduled, cold in the hands in the morning, lead in the calves by noon, a stomach pulled tight before dusk. If I let them all speak at once, it was too loud. This way, each took a shift. Food was ritual now, a handful of berries, a mushroom tested in cautious increments. Water remained my double-edged friend, it fed me, but chilled me until I had to chase a patch of sun. I walked 50 steps, stood for 30, counted quietly. Every number was a contract with reality, this far, then rest. I stopped thinking about rescue as a far-off goal. Instead I made micro-targets, reached that boulder, that strip of light, that leaning tree. At one point I caught my reflection in a still puddle and didn't recognize the man looking back. It wasn't horror, just surprise, a face drained of everything but will. We'll repaint later, I said out loud, and that absurd thought made me laugh. When the sun sank and the mud swallowed my prints, I started leaving marks that wouldn't wash away, stacked stones, peeled bark, lines scratched in sand. Maybe no one would see them. But I would know, I was here. And I kept going. Rain didn't begin with drops, it began with the air going darker, like someone dimmed the exposure. Wind tore through the canopy, branches cracking like glass, 18-1. I found a rock overhang that was barely enough, crouched under it, made myself as small as possible. My jacket soaked through instantly, 18-2, water running down my sleeves into my palms. My teeth clattered like a metronome, I couldn't stop. Hypothermia didn't knock, it slid in quietly, first skin, then muscle, then mind. Suddenly even thinking in full sentences felt expensive. I reduced everything to verbs: sit, breathe, wait. Lightning split the sky, 18-3, and for a moment I saw my silhouette thrown against the rock face. Proof I was still solid. Storms make rules laughable. You can't outsmart wind strong enough to pin you. All you can do is get smaller, lower, stiller. I pulled out what little dry tinder I had, scrap of bark, a few twigs, a precious stub of paper. Sometimes I managed a spark, sometimes I didn't. The fire wasn't for drama. It was to prove to my brain that the system was still online. When nothing caught, I closed my eyes and counted to 60, again and again, until counting was all there was. Storms have an end, even when you can't imagine it. When the rain finally eased, the forest looked rinsed and new, and I was soaked to the bone, but I had outlasted another hour, another trial. And that, out here, is what counts. The mud had become a map with no legend, 19-1. Each step sank, squelched, and erased itself. My feet were raw, nails throbbing, socks a memory. I whispered to myself, 19 to 2, stay focused. Look forward. Don't measure distance. Out here, goals can only be 2 minutes long, 2 minutes of walking, then rest, 2 minutes of sitting, then rise. Strength isn't a question of intensity but of rhythm, how long you can keep up a steady beat. Cold settled into my knees and spine. I negotiated back by changing my stride, like we were bartering. During pauses I inspected my hands, skin tough, lines of the palm cracked like old parchment. The thought of giving up arrived quietly, not dramatically. Lie down. Save energy. Maybe that's better. No. In that maybe is death. I changed the mission. I stopped looking for the trail and started looking for proof I wasn't the last human alive, a footprint, a piece of plastic, a sawed branch. The goal wasn't escape, it was connection. And then, after hours, I saw a faint cut in a branch. Old or not, I let myself believe it was human. Belief gave me fuel. I straightened, raised my head, whispered, just a little more. And walked on. First came the air shift, then the sound, deep, familiar, the kind that makes leaves spin and dust leap, 20 to 1. Helicopter. This time lower, closer, like it was looking for me specifically. I tried to shout, but my voice tore apart halfway out. I had only my hand. I raised it, 20 to 2, not in a cinematic wave but in a trembling lift that carried every mile, every night, every bite of bitter berry. The world shrank to that motion, to a fist saying, here. In my mind I saw a thermal camera, 20 to 3, my heat signature glowing against a cold forest floor. I didn't know if they had me, but I said it anyway, this time. Please. The rotor wash lashed my face, dust filled my eyes, and the tears that came were part grit, part something ancient. If they missed me again, at least I tried. But the sound didn't fade. It circled back, came lower. Those seconds lasted longer than any day before. When I understood they had me, I didn't cheer. I just exhaled a breath I'd been holding for 30 days. Like returning a borrowed life. Through the blur of leaves came colors I hadn't seen in weeks, orange jackets, 21 to 1, reflective tape, human faces. Got him, a voice called, sharp and whole. Hands touched my shoulders, my back warm, solid. They wrapped me in a foil blanket, 21 to 2, called me by name, asked me to squeeze their fingers. I tried to talk, words fell like pebbles from a torn bag. Water, I croaked, and someone was already holding a bottle. They lifted me onto the litter, and for a moment the sky tilted. The helicopter rotor churned the clearing into a white storm, 21 to 3, and the forest blurred into watercolors. For the first time in a month, I didn't have to count steps or ration breaths. If hell had been a process, so was heaven, and I had just entered it, quietly, with more gratitude than noise. A bottle appeared in my view, 22 to 1, steady as a gift. Slowly, someone said. The first sip was like sunlight through shutters, thin but enough to change the whole room. My throat remembered what to do. My stomach resisted, then accepted. Tears came by themselves. Drops stayed on my chin, 22 to 2, my hands shook like I'd forgotten how to hold anything. Water tasted like home because it tasted like nothing. That's what normal is, and normal had become rare. Voices in the cabin were short, precise, vitals, pulse, time to hospital. He's doing okay, someone said, and I wanted to frame the sentence. I watched the world slide backward through the open door and promised myself small things, to make coffee slowly, to let a song finish before skipping, to call someone just to ask how they are. I wasn't a new man. I was the same man, but I knew the price of a sip of water and I wouldn't forget it. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and second chances. A doctor stood at my bed, 23 to 1, hands folded, expression firm but kind. You had maybe one day left, maybe less, he said, and in that phrase I heard all my choices stamped official. No melodrama, just fact. On a chart, 23 to 2, someone had written, 1 day left, a miracle. I don't think of miracles as shortcuts. I think of them as the long nods you hit because you kept showing up. Recovery wasn't a montage, it was deliberate, spoon by spoon, step by step, sleep that finally stayed longer than 10 minutes. Nurses told me it was normal to feel cold for days, normal for muscles to remember slowly. When they weighed me, the number read like a missing person report. When they weighed me again a week later, it felt like a return ticket. I set a goal, walked to the door without wobbling. I made it. Small miracle. Mine. When the door opened, the room felt smaller, packed with warmth. My mom walked in carefully, like she was afraid to melt the moment. We met in the middle and held on, 24-1. Her hand covered mine, 24-3, the cool circle of her ring against my skin. We didn't say much. Tears handled translation, hers said I knew, mine said I came back. In the wide shot, 24-2, monitors blinked, but someone had turned the lights warm. She thanked every person in the hallway, every stranger who'd read my name in the past month. Then she looked at me with the kind of stare that takes your temperature without a thermometer. "It's okay now," she said. I handed her the water bottle on my tray, like I wanted to share the symbol. We laughed at how dumb and perfect that gesture was. We talked about silly things, whether I keep the beard a few more days as proof, what I'd eat first, how I'd stick to flat trails for a while. When she stepped out to speak to the doctor, I watched the tear streaks on her face and thought, every drop was part of the search. It wasn't just the helicopter that found me. It was her will, too. The golden hour over the mountains, 25-1, isn't a promise, it's a reminder. The world will still be beautiful tomorrow whether you're ready or not. The empty trail after the storm, 25-2, glistens with droplets, and I see 30 nights in every one of them. The helicopter is just a dot now, 25-3, its sound fading, but I keep it inside me like a metronome that whispers, one more step. If someone asks what I learned, I won't talk about strength. I'll say survival is bookkeeping. There are no big leaps, only one more sip, 5 more steps, one more sunrise you trust enough to meet. The North Cascades aren't cruel. They're indifferent. We're the ones who look for meaning, and sometimes we find it in a stranger's hand or in our own refusal to quit. On black screen, 25-4, the words appear, 30 days lost in the wilderness, inspired by true events. And then the final card, 25-5, the logo, the channel, the ask to like and subscribe. If there's one sentence worth leaving after the credits roll, let it be small, stubborn, and old, one more step. That's it. That's everything.